even has made a state-of-the-art report, a state-of-the-art report. So it's a pleasure to have him talk today. So the state-of-the-art report, for the start, he's going to present is about electronic health records. So a rather hot topic, and he's going to talk about the interaction and visualization of these electrical health records. And this is work from Qiru, which is a PhD student, and Laramee from the University of London. And Bob has mentioned that he would prefer that you are able to ask questions during the talk, not just at the end. So feel free to raise your hand, and the student assistants, please pay attention to go around.
Hey everybody, thank you for attending the session of the EHR Startup Session, the state-of-the-art interactive EHR visualization. Thank you, Ehr, for the lovely introduction. What did you say? Star
Champion.
Star Champion. Thanks for that. If you don't like this star, blame Howard, because Howard is the one that talking about if you like this, if you like it, then it's mine. You can give the credit to me. So my name is Laramee, and this is done in collaboration with Wang, who is a PhD candidate from University of Nottingham. And we are, as a public service announcement, by the way, we are looking for our next project. And if you're interested in collaborating on health-related projects, please let us know. And I also want to reiterate what Anna said. If you have questions or comments, please interrupt. Just raise your hand or something. In fact, I might even ask questions to the audience. So if you fall asleep, the chances of me asking you the question increase. So just a little introduction and motivation. Maybe you're familiar with this, but there are lots of initiatives that collect electronic health records or health data and try to study them and analyze them. There was an executive order to develop a lot of money for EHR analysis effort in the US in 2004. There's a well-known SAIL data bank in the UK. Has anybody ever heard of the SAIL data bank? The Secure Anonymized Information Linkage Database. It's a major effort in the UK to collect and analyze electronic health records. In fact, Qiru used to work there, so that was a very part of this survey. There was a Horizon 2020 initiative. Did anybody notice that back in the day? So there was a visual analytics workshop on healthcare and electronic health records in 2014. And actually, we had a presentation there talking about the use of visualization for electronic health records. And there were lots of other initiatives. There was I don't really need to mention that thing that happened in 2020 that was related to health. And it's widely believed and accepted that a nation's health can be improved through the analysis and study of electronic health records. So this survey has some contributions. So it's quite it's not a light survey. I would call it a heavyweight survey, actually, or a heavyweight star. It has about over 200 related references. It has 19 tables. I think this is the most tables that I've ever looked at for a star report. features novel classifications of the EHR literature based on the recurring themes in the visualization literature in this thing, the Unified Medical Language System, not to be confused with UML from software engineering. Has anybody heard of UMLs before? Anyone? A few people? Okay, that's good. And to give it a little bit of, I don't know, spice or something a little bit different, we also have this other part, you could call it part 2, which is a survey of open access health data sources. One of the barriers to entry in this study is gaining access to the data. Anybody that's tried to visualize electronic health records know that this is a barrier. And so we try to address this barrier directly by offering a survey of data sources, so something a little bit different. And of course, we give an overview of future challenges and solve problems in the field. We also provide an interactive EHR style literature and data browser. So if you click on this link, it will bring you to a web page, and it will show you EHR data sets, and then classified. We're going to talk about their classification of EHR literature, which is also classified. So if you want to jumpstart your literature search in the literature browser, it's all there in this browser. Thanks to Wang for setting that up. And that's an image capture of the EHR style browser, just in case I wasn't able to get Wi-Fi access to it at all. And this is an overview of the survey. So it has a lot of different sections. We have challenges in the field, a literature search methodology, a terminology section, some literature classifications. So that letter S is boldface and underlined, so there's more than one literature classification there. There is a related work section, which is also long. I debated with myself for several hours whether or not I would include that in this presentation, and I decided to leave it out actually, because I don't want the presentation to run for days. I wanted to try to, so I thought, okay, I will cut out the related work. But I do have a few slides, like supplementary slides, if somebody wants to see the related work. I have some supplementary slides that could show up at the end of the question and answer time. And then we look a little bit at the literature, right? It's divided into these well-known subtopics: machine learning, natural language processing, sequence simplification, visual analytics, and then population health records. And we look at the evaluation techniques. I think we can all agree that evaluation is quite a challenge in any discipline, or at any sub-discipline of visualization. So we have special evaluation techniques used. That's part 1. And then part 2 is the data. We're going to go into more detail. These are not 50 parts. And we're not going to talk about 50-50. But there is a part 2 that's just about the data sets, the open access data sets that we survey. Right? We have a kind of survey of data, a data-centric survey. So it follows a similar pattern as the literature survey. Right? It talks about associated challenges of health data, how we search for the health data, the scope, what we included, what we did not include. We classify the different data sets and the different data sources. And yes, we're not going to cover all the details because it would take too much time. I don't think you want me to cover all the details, because then we'd have to sit here for like 20 years, and you don't want to do that. Okay, so some of the challenges in the EHR visualization. So the literature is not concentrated in one journal or one conference. It's spread across lots of different journals and lots of different workshops and conferences. That's a challenge. So when you're searching for the literature, you really have to do with search in several The research teams inside the papers usually come from more than one angle. So visualization medicine, maybe machine learning, all three of these disciplines collide. And maybe another one, like event sequence simplification, visualization, machine learning, and medicine, all coming together in one paper. That also adds a layer of challenge. Terminology is another challenge. There's not consistent terminology used in the literature. This is one of the things that we grappled with for a long time when we were writing. This is what should be the main terminology we use. And then, as anybody that's delved into this topic knows, the data is associated with a number of challenges. Gaining access to the data is a challenge, right? Because it's kind of sensitive data. It has to be anonymized. That's very, very careful and rigid anonymization process. There are lots of data protection barriers to gain access. Data is heterogeneous, right? Numerical data, unstructured text, images. There's no standard format, for better or for worse. And of course, scalability is a challenge, not just limited to EHR visualization, but any visualization language. And it's also high dimensional. So lots of challenges associated with the EHR data. Here's a little view of where we search for literature and where we found literature. Right? We found some literature on TCG. This is in approximate chronological order, not exact. There is a workshop that happens, the actual workshop in visual analytics and healthcare. Right? This is where we presented the paper in Paris, actually. Was anybody there? Sylvia was there. Oh, amazing. Were you actually at the workshop? Thank you. Anyways, I digress. So these are all, I think these are all things that we're familiar with, these literature sources, this audience. And then there's this other non-visualization conferences in journals where we also search for literature and found related literature. And it's quite a diverse list. Probably you haven't heard of all of these publications. I certainly had not heard of all of these publications before I worked on this survey. So it's quite a diverse set there. And also challenges with the scope. I don't talk very much about the scope of this presentation. The paper goes into the scope. Defining the scope was very, very tricky. But generally speaking, we included the paper if it was published after 2011 and customized specific software was built for the visualization of EHR data, not just off-the-shelf software that's being used. We looked into the terminology quite a bit. We spent a long time fighting, discussing which terms we should use and to try to get a consistent terminology because the terminology in the literature is not consistent. So we have a set of terms that we use and we have a set of definitions that we use. The most basic one being EHR. A longitudinal collection of comprehensive patient medical information in machine-readable formats, maintained and shared by healthcare providers, and stored securely in an electronic system. You'll find several different definitions of EHRs. This is the one that we like the best, basically. And then there are several variants on this theme, like electronic medical records. This is a version, let's say, of EHRs that are only used internally and not shared externally in whatever organizations is using them. There are personal health records where these are EHRs that are managed by the individuals for which they stem. So the individual decides whether or not it can be used for analysis or not, and by who, when, and so on. We use the term population health records in the survey quite a bit. We use the EHR and pop EHR quite a bit. These are EHRs that address a cohort or a subpopulation And then we use UMLS, the Unified Medical Language System. This is a dictionary that I learned about during the survey that actually Qiru taught me about this because he worked on the sale database, and this is what they used to analyze the electronic health records. They formulate queries using the UMLS dictionary. So it's a standardized list of medical concepts, terms, and unique IDs. So a lot of analysts use this when they're studying jobs. And it's an attempt to bring some standardization into this field. And so we also try to incorporate this into the survey. Right? This is a little topology or technology from the UMLS topics. We'll talk about that a little bit more. This is a literature overview by UMLS terms. This is the table. I know this is not really legible. Can anybody read that? Probably not, right? It's very, it's too small a font. So I'm going to, on the next slide, I'm going to zoom in on the top end rows to make hopefully it's going to be legible on this slide. Is this legible? I hope it's more legible. So this is an overview table based on UMLS terms. So the first column is the UMLS code or the unique ID given to each term in the dictionary. This is the UMLS term of natural language, right? Anorexia nervosa, for example, or early fibrillation, for example. Then we have the keywords. We do a mapping of UMLS term to keywords used in the papers. So the visualization papers don't necessarily use UMLS terms. So we do a mapping from paper to UMLS. And then these are the actual papers. And they're put into different columns depending on how many electronic health records they visualize or depict or analyze or study. So, for example, these two papers study between 2 and 100 electronic health records. Right? That's a view of the columns. And now, if we look back at this table, this is the literature sort of scattered throughout this table. You can see that there's really no convergence in any way, shape, or form that's noticeable based on topic, like a medical topic, or the data set sizes. Right? And there are very few papers looking in this last column greater than 100,000 electronic health records because it's very challenging. This is a literature overview of the definitions used in the papers. So this is something we talked about quite a bit, is trying to refine the terminology that we use for the survey. And in doing so, we looked at the terminology in the literature. So this is again another read, so I'm going to do a zoomed in view of the top end rows for the next slide. Hopefully this is legible. In the first column we have the paper, and these are sorted in chronological order by year of publication. And then we have the terminology we use in the remaining columns. So, for example, the paper by Hornwell uses the term EHR. And the paper by Bouygues uses the term EMR, or electronic medical record. And then if there are other terms used in EHR, so EHR-related concepts, we put that in the third column. Right? So you can see clearly that there's a lack of standard terminology, computerized patient records, time-oriented clinical data, medical data, personal medical history, and so on, all referring to the same really electronic records. And then we have a little checkbox that was published in the visualization community or somewhere outside, defined by those two tables that we saw. It's roughly chronological order. We also have this color coding that we use in a lot of the tables. So these are green. We call these context papers. The green ones context papers, so they're historical. They go further back in time. So they serve as a detail about what the contents are. And then we have the focus papers that are more recent, and then we go into more detail about their content in the survey. And if we go back to the overview table, you can see it's not easy to find any special patterns in there. But you can see that EHR is the dominant term used. So that's question or comments?
They don't hear it.
I hope it's an easy question.
Is it working?
Yeah.
It's very easy actually. When you retrieve the papers, did you also retrieve papers that work in terms of techniques that use electronic health records as study cases, or
As which cases?
as a study case?
Study case.
Yeah.
Use case.
Yeah, use case.
Yes. Is that the whole question, or is that?
There is one part of the question. When you say the visualization community, do you mean also journals such as the Graphics Forum, or just conferences?
Yes, when I say the biz community, I'm referring to this so-called biz venues. That's an easier question. So we included papers. The first part was about the scope, and the scope is tricky because if the scope is too broad, you never finish, and you include millions of papers. So our scope is, the answer is yes to your question, short answer. If the software that's featured in the paper is especially developed for purposes of electronic health records and not just pulled off the shelf. It's not, if it's just Tableau, not that there's anything wrong with Tableau. If it's Tableau, it's not featured, but if it's customized, special purpose, built software. And another feature is interaction. If the software is interactive, it will be more likely to be included. So if it's just static charts, or bar charts, or line charts, it's generally not included. Any other questions so far? I think I saw somebody falling asleep and might get called on. That's the introduction material of what we just finished. And now we're going to look at the actual literature. We're just going to look at the categories and maybe look at one example from each category, just to give you a flavor of what it looks like. This is an overview table of the literature classified by visualization technique. So that's the full table with the font size that's too small to read. And here's a zoomed in view of the first many rows. So we have again the literature on the left column, and then we have our categories of topics, what we call complementary techniques, machine learning, natural language processing, event sequence simplification, geospatial visualization, clustering, comparison, and others. So we can go back to the overview and maybe see a few trends. For example, machine learning gaining popular, NLP never being particularly popular, event sequence simplification, probably the most popular subtopic related to that. Of course, geospatial visualization, which is associated with population healthcare records. So we're going to look at some examples of those. This is the overview of machine learning literature and electronic health records visualization. So in the left column, we have the paper, or the reference, and then in the second column, we have machine learning topics that they use to study electronic health records, active learning, and so on. And then we've assigned every paper in the survey is associated with the UMS term to some standardization. And they're sorted roughly in chronological order. We also have a color coding here, And so the papers sometimes have multiple themes, like machine learning and event sequence simplification. So in this case, we chose a primary and secondary theme, and if it's highlighted in green, it means machine learning is a secondary theme, not primary. So event sequence simplification, for example, is the primary theme. Here is an example paper from the machine learning category. I don't think anybody's too shocked or surprised that there's a machine learning category there for Ehr visualization papers. Carefree by Jin et al. It converts EHR data from a patient cohort, so a group of patients, into event sequences. This is one of the popular themes, is trying to understand the event sequence of events that occurs in hospitals, for example. And it uses a machine learning technique for predicting a patient's risk level. So risk for occurring some sort of a diagnosis, and then recommends the most influential treatment plans based on that prediction. And it uses a very popular healthcare data set called Living data sets. Has anybody heard of Living data sets? This is quite a popular open source one. And in this example, they're studying cardiovascular disease. This is an overview of the EHR visualization literature that uses natural language processing as part of their analysis. So not as many as the machine learning example. And again, we have this green that indicates NLP is a secondary theme, so there are really only three that use NLP as a primary theme, right? And we see the different aspects of NLP that are used in the second column, and the UML is termed in the third column, and was published in the fourth column. And the example we're going to look at is by Wang et al. So in this paper, the data set is a set of clinic letters. So letters written by doctors, and all of those letters have something in common. They're documenting prescriptions or recommending prescription drugs. And the goal of this system is to come up with a way to explore, analyze, and look for patterns in prescriptions of drugs. Because analysts are looking for special combinations that they expect to go together, but they're also looking out for combinations of drugs that shouldn't go together. So, for example, or conditions in which, so for example, some drugs should not be prescribed for pregnant women, for example. So, in this system, they can look for those drugs, those drug prescriptions, and other natural language terms like pregnancy, and see if there are any unexpected combinations. Right here is an overview of the metadata that's extracted from each letter. There's a matrix view that looks at, that pairs up the drug combinations and looks for popular drug combinations and the unpopular ones and expected ones and unexpected ones. There's the drug chain view. So this shows where the drugs appear, like how many drug prescriptions appear in a single letter, and which order they appear in the letter. And then again, they're looking for unexpected combinations. And there's something that's very unusual, taking prescription drugs, for example. And then there's this superposition view. It's called a letter space view. And it takes literally the space that the letter is in, A4 space, and it superimposes every letter into that space, and the location in the letter space of the drugs, any other metadata. Looking literally the distances between drug names and so on, and looking at for patterns and unexpected co-occurrences of drugs. Expected and unexpected. So that's like an overview, and then we have thumbnail views that connect those instances to each other. So this is click on an individual letter, you get the actual text lines that's on that data. This particular paper was looking at studying epileptic treatment. What drugs are associated with the treatment of epilepsy. Another popular theme is event sequence implication, to try to figure out what happens in hospitals is a common setting. So, like the sequence of events that happens in hospitals, there are lots of those, but also other kinds of scenarios, like the sequence of events associated with congestive heart failure, the sequence of events associated with prescriptions, the order in which the prescriptions are given, for example. And all of these papers have something in common. They're trying to study the order of events. You know, what's the most common order? What's the unusual order of events? You know, what's the typical flow of events? Looking for the most common and unusual event sequences. And again, we have this kind of style that really indicates this as a secondary theme. This is a popular topic inside of the Ehr visualization literature. Here's just one example. I don't think I can pronounce this name. Anybody know how to pronounce this name? Is this person here? Wang, maybe? That's my best guess. So this is an example of an event sequence representation, and it starts with the starting event, which is the most frequent, and then successive events. So those successive events are represented by branches of the main event or the starting event, and their frequency is bound to thickness, and then it recurses. So starting with these two first events with the third event, and it splits again into a number of following events, and so on until we get long events, long and unusual event sequences. Like the popularity of such a sequence is indicated by the thickness of the tree. And these events occur more successively over time, so it's a time-oriented visualization, and it aggregates the events in this kind of tree graph. It simplifies the comparison of alternative paths and common paths. It's supported by a user study of the paper, and in this case, it's for heart failure. It's a study of heart failure, not here failure. We have another collection of papers looking at using visual analytics and trying to focus on innovative ways to compare. And there is a kind of comparison survey. Does anybody remember the comparison survey that was published a few years by Wang? I don't know if there was another author on that. But the comparisons are categorized into three different types. There's juxtaposition, so next to each other, superposition on top of one another, explicitly encoded, which is drawing lines between corresponding pairs or triplets. This is the collection of literature that focuses on comparison, and you can see that juxtaposition is the most popular comparison technique. And we're going to look at an example of comparison. So this is one example. This is a radial coordinates example of coordinate. So it's combining a number of visual designs, so parallel coordinates and a radial layout combined. There's actually a scatter plot in the middle there. It's not so easy to see, but it's there. And then there are chord diagrams that connect the different dimensions together to indicate relationships. And this supports comparison of high and low prevalence values. In this example, this is being applied to the public health England data, and this user has chosen the region of London, or the city of London, and then the corresponding prevalence values on maps along the parallel coordinates radial. And you might notice here that if you choose London, then you get the low prevalence value for a lot of the health conditions, except for mental health. cluster is one of the topics, not a lot, but there's this there's this one called others, where papers that couldn't fit into a category, not many, luckily. So here's an example from the clustering section. So this is Dicom and Ritzenall. And it's an exploration of cohort similarities or groups of patients, right? And that's usually associated with pop HR. And each one of these icons represents a cohort, and then the clusters can be refined by the user. The similarity metrics can be tuned by the user, refined and edited, and the clusters can be subdivided into so dragging and dropping margins in the clusters are also supported by the system. And in this case, the paper studied diabetes. And one of the last sections is population healthcare records. So these are the analysis of cohorts or groups of people, right, anywhere from 2 to millions of entire countries. And we have a list of papers on the left column, the geospatial regions that are covered in the second column, and then again the UMLS terms in the third column, the years that are published. Of course, we're going to take an example from the UK to show you maybe our favorite example, completely objectively said. In this example, we're looking at a fun problem, which is multivariate data on maps. Right? This is a great, I would call it an unsolved problem. And especially glyph placements. This is a multivariate glyph placement. Study of population healthcare records. If you take a map of England and you divide it up into regions, the health administrative regions called CCGs, clinical commission groups, and then you try to place a multivariate glyph, like a pie chart, on each region, you end up with something like this. Right? So it's very cluttered, it's hard to read. That's the naive glyph placement algorithm, just placing it at the center of each CCG. So we worked on an algorithm to try to improve that placement, and it basically clusters glyphs that are overlapping into one glyph. And it still preserves the geography. So that glyph is still tied to the geography, or the centroid of the geography which it represents. And it's also dynamic, so the user can zoom in and out, and the clusters, the glyphs merge and split depending on the zoom level. So it's always looking at overlap in screen space. And so if there's too much overlap, the glyphs merge. If there's too much empty space, the glyphs split apart. So it's a dynamic placement. And it represents the prevalence values that are probably shown in the public health data set. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 variants there in those groups. Any questions or comments before we go on to the next section? I'm not going to use the whole time.
One quick question, Bob.
I hope it's easy.
It's very easy, a very good question. In the beginning, you told us that you observed 200 plus papers, but in all of the clinical papers you showed, the sun was very more than
That's right. They're all related papers, but they're not like focused papers. So we have descriptions of papers, for example, that we didn't include, or papers that we think are useful, but we don't describe in detail. And there's a lot of work in the related work section as well. They say, okay, this is related work, this is related work. So it would be fun to have a complete map of all the references, but that would take a long time. So we just have 3 categories: the focus that you see in the tables, the context that you see in the tables, and then the related ones, the border around that space.
I have a question concerning which kind of data you explore of electronic healthcare. Because as far as I've seen, you usually visualize the data which is used for diagnosis, but not treatment planning. Did you have anything in your survey about how to visualize treatment planning? Because this is a very severe issue in medical healthcare. Not only diagnosis, but treatment and the combination of treatment information and diagnosis.
Yes, that's a good question. It's not as easy as I thought. The treatment is not the focus. It's more the diagnosis that's the focus. It would be, I think, if the treatment were the focus, it would introduce a massive reorganization. Like it would be another dimension of the survey. And it's not the focus. That could be like next year's survey. Focus on treatment. But I don't think the treatment is covered in a lot of the papers in very much depth. There are a couple, yes. It would be interesting to see actually how many go into that level of depth. I mean, a lot of them stop short. They make a few observations, and then the treatment is kind of silently left out.
I want to go to an easy usually, if you use electromagnetic healthcare, you have a lot of uncertainty in you. Also concerning the care automation. I have an example in Eurovis.
Any example of which information?
Technical uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
Very uncertainty and technical uncertainty.
Yes, that is not a focus. We do mention it. We mention it as one of the data challenges. I don't know if it's going to be coming up on a slide or not. I don't think I have that as one of the data. But there's a data quality challenge. So electronic health records with missing columns or missing attributes and uncertain attributes. So it's mentioned. It's not a focus, but it is certainly one of the mentions in the health data challenges section.
And then
Hi. Thank you for this great work for you. Since you're not finished yet. But I was wondering, since this is a start and it's also domain related, so that the medical user is somewhere also in this project. And I find it, when I work with medical doctors, I always find it helpful that they are quite visual thinkers. They're using visualization in their practice already. And how much did you look at visualizations that are already used, complementary, etc., also context? They're not developed visualizations for the visualization community, but they're important for us to know that they think that to build nice and usable visualizations. Is that something that you do?
So I'm going to hand wave a little bit on this answer. We talked a lot, at least probably a year or something, which is a long conversation about the scope. The scope of this survey was quite a challenge, trying to find what's in, what's out. So that, I would say, we said that's our scope, because we were struggling with the scope in a lot of ways. If you look at the PDF, you see, okay, this is not light survey or light star, it's a little bit of a heavy one. And so yeah, we left out to keep the scope more manageable. Well, we didn't focus on that aspect. But it would be an improvement to have some domain experts as co-authors on the survey. We would have a version that comes with the domain expert perspective more as a central capacity, central region. We wanted to leave some room for improvements for future surveys for our audience to publish as well. Questions, comments?
Yes, I also have a question. It was like I'm in medical school, thanks so far. And I was wondering, it's a related question, I think.
But from my kind of my experience in listening to other members of the community, I wouldn't call myself an expert in this area. From listening to some colleagues that I consider to be more expert users or expert researchers in this area, I have heard many anecdotes that it's very difficult to penetrate like real-world clinical practice in this area. And my guess is because doctors and physicians and anybody working in this area are already overloaded, and they don't, if you ask them to do more, then it's just too much. And I've also heard that from practitioners in the healthcare system directly, who I've spoken to directly. So I'm guessing this is one of the barriers. And of course, the other classic barrier was addressed in the BizGaps workshop. Right? We're working hard, writing on the software for 3 or 4 years, and then it all dies, right? When somebody graduates and finally ends. So there are 2 factors preventing the penetration of this great visualization software into commercial practices. At least 2 forces. Carrie, that's a good question.
I think one of the things I find very interesting about surveys is that if you read one, you can get a lot of ideas of where you might be able to make a contribution. And so my specific question has to do with either natural language processing or in general sequence modeling. And I was wondering what your sentiment is. Were the papers that you came across, was it mainly dabbling, or was there a concerted and focused attempt to take the entire range? Because there's literally dozens and dozens of ways of using sequence modeling to process natural language, for example. So I'm just wondering how sophisticated, what was your, you took the pulse. I was just wondering how sophisticated you think it's been so far, and where it's applied to each other.
My impression is that this is still an immature field from a visualization perspective. That's my impression. You can look at these papers and you can see, okay, I see parallel boards being applied here, I see board diagrams and scatter plots and so on. So there's a lot of literature that's really I don't want to use the word recycling, but using relevant techniques. I think there's a lot of room for innovation still left. The other thing is, you can see from one of the tables that the scalability is a real issue. Which table? The one that showed that, I think it's the very first table. Yeah, I mean, the papers are, like, for example, here's a whole set of papers looking at just one electronic health record at a time, right? And these are looking at, from 1 to 100. And the ones that are looking at large numbers of electronic health records are really limited. So I have a feeling that there's evidence here that there's a lot of room for innovation to handle to address this problem of very large collections. Electronic health records usually come in millions, right, or billions. Like the SAIL database is always advertising that they have billions of electronic health records. So I think there's a lot of room for innovation in that aspect. Another question. Okay.
I would propose to me that you finish the talk and then
It doesn't
do you have a lot?
I just have a few more slides. I did that on purpose. I didn't want to make this a long presentation, and I was hoping to keep it short to leave plenty of time.
So another question and then
Maybe I'll offer an explanation as to why it's not seen in this set of visualization pages very many that involve a large number of records. And I wonder if that is the inevitable thing of where you source or perhaps not where you source the text from, but the criteria criteria that you apply are specifically said, we're going to develop new visualization techniques. Because as you just said, it's routine for the health data research on disease circles to be involving tens of millions of records through statistical analysis. But I also think the biggest challenge that the clinical researchers that I deal with have is of bringing together and integrating the data they have, rather than needing visualization techniques. But there may be ways in which the community can play a supporting role in that through visual assessments.
Yes, there was no question, that was just a comment, correct? Yes, I could answer an imaginary question too, which was, I mean, data access is definitely an issue. To gain access to 1 million or more electronic health records is not trivial. Anybody that's done that, I'd be happy to hear from. That's very good. So maybe we should talk at the break. But Wang and I certainly have not gained access to the millions of electronic health records. The data set that we showed was only 200, actually. Any other comments? Another one?
We have 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes.
I don't know how much you have left.
Well, I understand we should finish the presentation. Actually, I interacted with the question we're doing because I think this is very confidential before, so I'm tempted to ask another question. Actually, it's a reaction to what you said before, because on the question why there isn't more adoption, you said the clinicians are maybe already overloaded. But I was wondering whether there isn't a much broader range of users. I would expect that there are medical researchers interested in electronic health records, managers of public health care, civil service, politicians. I would expect that we're looking at a much broader range of potential users. What's your take on that?
That's a very good point. And when he was asking the question, for some reason I had the scientific medical visualization in my head. But you're exactly right. So the domain experts that we work with just help electronic health record analysts. That's their full-time job. And that's all they do. So there's certainly, how many of them there are, I don't actually know. But there's certainly a whole group that is dedicated just to studying statisticians and analysts trying to generate statistics and summaries of all this data. Yes, that's exactly true. Did you turn this microphone on purpose?
I guess so. I mean, I just think how much money is spent on that. There must be some room for adoption.
I totally agree. And I also can say from experience that the analysts themselves sometimes complain about getting access to the data. It's a very contentious kind of area. So, but we got these 200 clinic letters from 2 analysts from the sales of the bank, and they said, oh yeah, we're going to give you access to a few thousands. And it just never happens. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that kind of scenario. Okay, any other things? I'm glad that not that many people fell asleep. So we did look a little bit at the evaluation techniques. I guess we have just a few minutes and I'll fast forward. I'll talk at 10 times the speed I normally talk. We looked a little bit at the evaluation techniques used in the paper because that's challenging, right? To have a convincing evaluation that satisfies the reviewers is very challenging. Most of the papers use domain expert feedback as part of their evaluation. Interviews are very popular. Case studies are very popular. And then controlled user studies are the least popular. We have part 2 And so I'm going to talk now for 2 hours about part 2. There is a part 2, and this we thought this would be fun. This would give this star another kind of dimension that would separate it from a typical star. So we actually survey health data sets and with a special focus on open access health data sets, because this is a very challenging problem, gaining access. If you want to look at health data, where do you start looking? It's a jungle out there, right? And it's hard to understand and see what's out there. We have all these different aspects of the health data that we go into, just like the literature in the survey. We won't talk about all of these, but we talk about accessibility, the quality of data, which somebody mentioned, associated with uncertainty, right? We talk about data interoperability and the lack of standards with electronic health records. We discussed the details of how we searched for the data in the paper and the details of what we left in and what we didn't include there. And then for each data set, there's a description, right? The 5 W's, who is the data provider, when the data was collected and published, where the data was collected, why the data was collected, and what the data set contains. And this is an overview of that data set. I don't know if it's legible. Is that legible, or is the font too small? Yeah, it's legible. So we have 3 different categories of access. Well, our favorite one is the open access. This is a set of data sets where you need to verify that you're a person and a researcher, that you might have to register, provide your details. And then there's a set of data sets where you need to verify that you're a person, a researcher, and pay a fee. Right? And they have all sorts of other attributes. These are specialized data sets that they have a single focus, like, for example, just the human mortality database or the Project Qiru, which is specifically for diseases, right? Then we have collections, so these have several different aspects related to the data. They're not focused on just diseases or anything, lots of different information. And then we have catalogs, so these are just groups of links to data sets. They collect lots of links together to individual data sets. And then we have a matrix, and there are lots of special little superscripts there, like a C, if it involves some COVID data. Green also indicates context data sources. We have like registration required for open access, partially open access, free access for project collaborators. You have to be a project collaborator on some of them. Paid access for non-collaborators, and so on. So we have lots of little superscripts there to add some more details about different aspects of the data set. That's a little zoom in in case some people couldn't read that. And we have some future challenges discussed in the paper. And I think we're going to wrap up there in the interest of sticking with the schedule.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sure there is maybe time for a fast question in the last part, but
I'll mention that we are looking for collaborators. I'll mention that one more time for Wang's final project, in case anybody wants to talk about it.
Just a short question. You mentioned earlier that it was hard to find domain experts to work with, and I was wondering what about participatory design, what about working with people, for example, who already knows, because I think in such sensitive topics, working with people who are actually related may make a big impact in your work.
Yes, I think that's a very good point. Yes. So like there is a subtlety that's a bit tricky with that. So it's like you need that person, but then you also need their data. And I don't know, that's not a very common combination, at least in my experience. Somebody that comes along and say, hey, I have me, I want to look at my own data, can you help me with that? Sure, it does exist. It just doesn't seem to be very common.
for the sake of time, I want to thank both again once more for the nice overview. I think listening to the comments, there are many stars to come in this direction. So thank you very much once more to both and also to Peter for the nice.
It's a good thing I did the Eurovis. He's nice to ask this question.
I think they're great. For the one question
I don't know actually.
They have proposed just starts one after the other.
Says what?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you also don't see at sea, right? I mean, either you pronounce
Okay.
but then I ignorant, you know? So, like, that's why 220
Yes, I'll take that on board.
I still don't understand. What do you mean that he should
Great, yeah, after you're done. I did a test earlier.
Oh, you mean because when he was saying at all instead of and all that stuff. I thought you were complaining the way it was written, because the way it was pronounced.
I have many questions, of course. One is that, do you think that the challenges with normalization is the limit that the products to
For sure, right? It's very strange though, because like, for example, the sale database, they're like, oh, we solved this problem, we are so cool, check us out. Like, we've got
But
this.
you almost need an expert on normalization and process before you can see how
And they do things like they mix the attributes and stuff that you can apply them, but they still should keep the same distribution. It's not so easy to do that, right? Because you want to anonymize, but at the same time keep the same distribution. You can do these things from the data. And if you start to mix attributes around, you're losing the distribution. So it's not, it's far from trivial to do this, right?
Thank you.
nice.
Yeah, it was nice. The first one was a bit tricky.
I understand.
It wasn't the easiest.
No, I actually also told to Pepper that it would be nice if, because these talks are, I think, 40 minutes talk without questions. I find it, people don't remember, what you say. So I encourage also people to have questions from it, but he didn't want. He said, I did. He was cute and nervous and
Nice session.
It was good. It's, to me, it's a lot of, it's difficult to find connection. right? So okay, so these are you mentioned that what is the common thing that they also when you look at your tables, everything is kind of all scattered, right? So it's very difficult to identify, okay, people usually do this and that's the problem, and you should do that, or you can explore it.
It's really scattered. If I had to use one word, I would use the word scattered. It's not coherent. It's not a coherent story. It's like just random numbers.
We're going to try another device. That's okay.
For visualization, it's the same. You do something different. I don't know. For example, we use visualization in place, and then just also so not transfer information, but transfer the resulting. So that there is this federated machine learning. So that the machine learning is active in locations, and then you basically you sum up the result of the model and aggregate. So with visualization, you can also do something like that, right? Like locally generating the partial visualization, and then something like it's not much really.
I think there are algorithms out there for the model models, for example, that make it fuzzy, so that you see. So if you have one outlier, for example, then you will do this the one like that, so you will have certain range fuzzy, and have this not this exact. So you have to do something.
I guess if you are interested in outliers, because outliers are by definition a very unique thing, right? So it's impossible to I mean, you can remove
to a certain degree, I mean, you can to a certain degree in a way that afterwards you cannot, a record cannot be distinguished among k others, for example. Something like that. But I think this will be in the future that you wrote something that the data is not one around. Depending on what rights you have, that you get only a certain restricted view. I don't know how many stars are you
I'm sure you are the one.
There's data.
This is super useful. I'm so grateful to you. I don't like to write stuff. There's so much work that I make, and I'm not I don't know. I can save my hobby, so my students don't do it. I help, but I'm not good enough.
Is this maybe sort of a condition?
Illness. It's an illness.
No, but it's nice, right?
Yeah,
it's work.
And we make fun of you, you know?
I still need my students. I never start my
Yeah, this was a new level.
Do you use the survey of surveys? Do you talk about it all?
We are talking actually in the this group was short surveying the start reports from the last couple of days. Mostly from last year, maybe from last year, just to give the people a feeling of what our language is.
We have the
So how extreme you can get. The people are trying to do a star, and then they say there's somebody out there.
Death by star.
Right?
It's a Death Star.
But how is a poor PhD student, how does he get a PhD if he's working on the star?
He's working on stuff.
Well, I mean, because with Bob, Bob was saying they were discussing for 1 year, but he was discussing. Why did you let this poor guy go here?
visa issues. He had the option. He was offered the option. I forgot to mention. Actually, two.
And the productivity of it, there's data.
Issues, and you met one of them.
Oh, yeah. I would actually encourage her.
I told her she could come to your office.
Because she said,
I appreciate that. Yeah, she just didn't want to go through all the stress of another discovery guy.
because now you kind of Turkey, okay?
That's right. That's right.
And making the condition of
Yeah, she did that. So she got a visa just for the
she's nice.
Yeah, she is. But it is actually, she graduated from 3 years.
I know a couple of people that go over there. There were a couple of people that there was some sort of real scary. Yeah, I'm the first one in this session.
Hi, I'm Paolo Buono.
Yeah,
I have the feeling
video.
It does. So,
Let me say,
always two projects.
I already did.
And if one's not going well,
Try to
then you have the other one. Hopefully it's going well, you know what I mean? So
you have already a
when
question
you work on one project that's not running well, it brings the mood down. Students.
Yeah, if you want.
but if you want, if you
Exactly. We just enjoy that stuff.
Yeah, but I go by PC.
Yeah.
And I work with other
Yeah.
I know there is sometimes projects go and then they are so focused on that. Done, although they are all yeah, it's very phonetic. No, I found that Europeans you can't say that they say video. No, it's all good. I have left my charger there, It's very delicate.